dissecting victims without anesthetic, exposing radiation to pregnant women, and even artificially inseminating women with chimpanzee semen. Here are my 10 most horrific human experiments ever conducted throughout history. Number 10 is the Milgram Experiment. If an authorized person were to command you to hurt another person, will you do it? In the 1960s, Stanley Milgram conducted a simple experiment where the volunteers were asked to shock a person in another room. The volunteers were ordered to continue the experiment even if the victim were to scream in agonizing pain, black out, or even die. Disturbingly, all the volunteers actually continued the experiment when commanded. Thankfully, the victim in the other room was an actor and no one was harmed. Well, physically that is. The volunteers suffered from trauma after the experiment as they realized what cruelty they are capable of. This experiment serves as a reminder that we humans can be extremely cruel when the right trigger is activated. Number 9 is the Attribution Project. In 1969, Dr. Aubrey Levin claimed that he had found a way to cure homosexuality. Thousands of homosexuals were handed to him. The doctor then strapped electrodes onto the victims. After that, he showed pictures of naked men and women to gays and lesbians, respectively. If the victims had arousal, he or she would be shocked. This process would be repeated again and again until the victims were somehow cured. The experiment didn't last long as the doctor fled the country when he was informed that he might be arrested for violating human rights. Number 8. Human-ape Hybridization Experiment. A Soviet biologist who specialized in the field of artificial insemination was convinced that he could create the ultimate soldier, a human-ape hybrid. The soldier's bred will be strong and agile like a chimpanzee and smart like a human. The biologist tried fertilizing a chimpanzee with human semen, but the female chimp failed to get pregnant. So instead, he tried fertilizing humans with chimpanzee semen. Again, the experiment failed, but that didn't stop the biologist. He continued conducting this experiment on volunteers and even on victims again and again until he was arrested on December 1930. Thankfully, not a single human-ape hybrid was ever created. Number 7. The Stanford Prison Experiment. Year 1970. Psychiatrist Professor Philip Zimbardo took 24 undergraduates and assigned them roles as either prisoners or guards. The goal of this experiment was to study how we would treat another fellow human being when they were labeled inferior to us. It was a simple experiment. The problem was that no one predicted that the experiment would be so successful. After just a mere few days, the guards started physically, mentally, and even sexually abusing the prisoners. The abuse was so bad that 2 prisoners had to be sent home early due to emotional trauma. The experiment was so horribly successful that even the psychiatrist himself started believing that he was in an actual prison. The Stanford prison experiment was stopped at the 6th day as the abuse was getting seriously severe. After that, the psychiatrist published a book called The Lucifer Effect. Again, as a reminder that we humans can be extremely cruel when the right trigger is activated. Number 6 is the THN1412 drug trial. In the year 2007, a group of scientists believed that they found a cure for leukemia. The THN1412 was first tested on various animals, and it was deemed safe as none of the animals had any lethal side effects. However, the same couldn't be said to a human being. The drug trial on humans started, and the results were grim, as it puts all 6 healthy men in hospital intensive care. The drug was believed to have caused overstimulation of the immune system, sending white blood cells rampaging throughout the body, destroying body tissues, and causing organs to fail. Number 5 is experiment on newborns. Imagine an infant that is 1 hour to 3 days old, so vulnerable and so adorable. Who in the right mind would use them for experiments? Well, these people. In 1960, researchers in University of California submerged 113 newborns' feet in ice-cold water to study the change in blood pressure and blood flow. Some newborns would even hang upside down so that the blood would rush into their heads. What were they thinking? I have no idea. Number 4. Radioactive materials in pregnant women. After World War II, there was a race to develop the most powerful chemical and radioactive weapon in the world. So, a few researchers gave 829 women vitamin drinks, which the researchers claimed would improve the health of their unborn child. But in fact, the vitamin drinks were actually radioactive iron. Why? Well, the researchers wanted to study how quickly the radioisotope would cross into the placenta. But this resulted in 7 babies dying from cancer, and the mothers having rashes, bruises, anemia, loss of hair and tooth, and even developed cancer themselves. Number 3. Project MKULTRA. From 1953 to 1973, the researchers of MKULTRA tried to find a way to control another person's mind. Citizens of America and Canada were hypnotized, sensory deprived, isolated, verbally and sexually abused, and fed with LSD and other mind-alternating drugs. However, some believe that the whole mind-controlling project was just a decoy. The real intention of MKUltra was to find the most effective way to torture and interrogate people. The researchers, however, claimed that they weren't doing anything sinister. But that didn't explain why they destroyed most of the records after MKUltra was shut down. Suspicious? Maybe a little. Number 2 is Unit 731. Unit 731 was a covert biological and chemical warfare research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army. Human experiments like dissection on victims without anesthetic, injection of lethal disease to develop new germ warfare, frostbite testing, weapon testing, and many more inhuman experiments were conducted here. Not only that, victims were constantly starved, raped, and beaten. Many died from extreme abuse. Number 1 is Nazi human experimentation. Conducted during World War II in concentration camps, The experiments range from genetically modifying twins, muscle and nerve transplantation, head injury experiments, freezing experiments, malaria experiments, immunization experiments by first exposing victims to deadly diseases, mustard gas experiments, and the list goes on. After World War II, the experiments were stopped, but the damage was done. Countless numbers of victims, mostly Jewish, were either dead, disfigured, or permanently disabled. Bonus: vaccine for smallpox. Remember smallpox? A lethal disease that exists millions of years ago and had been efficiently killing us since the dawn of mankind. Well, it was totally eradicated, and the person who played a major role was this guy, Edward Jenner. He first noticed that milkmaidens who had cowpox became immune to smallpox. So, he infected his neighbor's kids with cowpox, then with smallpox. Thankfully, the kid became immune to smallpox. To confirm his experiment, he went out and infected even more of his neighbor's kids with cowpox, then smallpox, and even included his own child in the experiment. All the kids became immune to smallpox, and he was confident that the vaccine for smallpox was found. Today, smallpox ceased to exist, and Jenner became a hero. But let's face it, if the experiment were to fail, he would be considered a murderer and would probably be charged with pedocide. Human experiments. Without proper control, it can be turned into a horrendous torture session. But without it, it is difficult, or sometimes even impossible, for us to understand more about our own body. Whether you find it justified or morally wrong, one thing is for sure: human experiments can never be fully banned, no matter what. This is VendaSoul saying stay safe, and thanks for watching.